Tap, tap, tap. She was tapping her nails against the window again, something she only did when she was nervous and trying to hide it. Outside, headlights smeared across the rain-slick road like neon smudges. Inside, the silence between us was thicker than the fog creeping in from the riverbank. I hadn't spoken in 5 minutes, not since the message. I kept replaying it in my head like a cursed song lyric. You should have checked her bracelet. That's it. No sender name, no follow-up. Just those 7 words. I hadn't shown her the message, not yet. I couldn't. Because here's the thing. She was wearing the bracelet, the one she swore she lost 2 months ago in Atlanta. It was right there on her wrist tonight, sparkling under the event lights like it had never been gone. I remember asking about it at the gala. Hey, didn't you lose that one? She'd blinked, smiled too quickly, and said, Oh, turns out it was in my gym bag the whole time. I'd nodded, but something had shifted in my stomach, something cold and ancient, like instinct. Like, this is a lie, and you know it. Now, as we drove across the old bridge toward home, her tapping got louder. Tap, tap, tap. The bracelet caught the glow from a passing street lamp. It shimmered. But not like jewelry, like bait. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to scream. Instead, I glanced at my phone again on the dashboard. There was a second message now. He gave it to her. Room 829, the Warwick. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My knuckles cracked. She didn't notice. She was scrolling Instagram like everything was fine. Like the night hadn't just set itself on fire and handed me the ashes. Room 829. I'd never been to the Warwick, but she had. Last month. She said it was for a networking workshop. 3 nights. No photos, no FaceTime, just one blurry lobby pic she texted me at 10 p.m. Long day, crashing now. Now I knew what she was crashing into. I looked at her, really looked at her. How do you ask someone if they've turned your life into a lie? How do you bring up a bracelet without breaking your own heart? Because that's the moment I realized. She hadn't lost it. She just hadn't wanted me to see it. I didn't say anything for the rest of the ride. She talked a little. Something about how the shrimp at the event was undercooked. How her coworker Julia wore the same dress as the VP's wife and was internally combusting. I nodded when it felt appropriate. Laughed once, and even that sounded like it came from somewhere outside of me. The message just sat there in my mind like a splinter in my eye. Room 829, the Warwick. Who was he? How did this person know? Why the hell would they send me that? As we pulled into the driveway, I killed the engine and just sat there with the keys in my hand. I could hear the house groaning from the shifting temperature. Old pipes, thin walls, the usual suburban ghosts. She grabbed her purse and reached for the door, then stopped. You okay? She asked. I wanted to say, no. I got a message saying you're wearing a bracelet some other guy gave you in a hotel room you swore you weren't in. I'm not okay at all. Instead, I gave her a tired smile. Just a migraine, maybe the wine. She offered to make tea, but I declined, said I was going to lie down. She nodded, kissed me lightly on the cheek, no hesitation, no guilt, nothing detectable, and disappeared into the kitchen. That's when I pulled out my phone again and did something I probably shouldn't have. I Googled the Warwick. Not the one in Denver or Atlanta, our Warwick. The one downtown, near the river, with the rooftop bar she said she hated. It was 26 minutes away. Traffic was light. Something in me snapped like a dry twig. I didn't even take off my coat. I slid out the back door, walked to my car, and drove without thinking. Every red light felt like it was mocking me. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping to find. Evidence? A receipt? A forgotten sock with a man's initials on it? Maybe I just wanted to see room 829 with my own eyes, to confirm that it was real, that she had been there. The lobby was smaller than I expected. Warm lighting, too much wood paneling, and one very tired-looking guy at the front desk. I approached him like I was trying not to scare a wild animal. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. We were here a few weeks ago, and I think I left a USB charger in room 829. Any chance someone turned it in? He squinted at me. What date was your stay? I paused. June 14th, I think. He started typing. His fingers moved slowly, like each key weighed a pound. No reservation under your name, he said. Oh, I said, scratching my head like a sitcom husband. She might have booked it under her name, Delaney Marlowe. He hesitated, then checked again. I watched his face carefully, his eyebrows raised, almost imperceptibly. "Yeah," he said slowly. "Checked in June 14th. 3 nights. 1 guest." That part stopped me cold. 1 guest. That wasn't what I was expecting. If she had been with someone, wouldn't they both be registered? But maybe that's how they did it. Maybe the other person came in after. Maybe he used the side entrance. Maybe I'm spiraling. I thanked the guy and walked back to my car like I'd just swallowed a rusted nail. But just as I sat down and closed the door, my phone buzzed again. New number. You're not wrong. Just behind. No name, no explanation, no mercy. I stared at the message, and for the first time since this all began, I felt something new crawling up my spine. This wasn't just about betrayal. Someone was watching me. I didn't drive straight home. I couldn't. Not after that message. You're not wrong. Just behind. I reread it maybe 20 times, my fingers tightening around the phone each time. The parking garage felt too quiet all of a sudden. My own breath sounded like it didn't belong to me. I looked over my shoulder. Nothing. Just concrete columns and an elevator humming somewhere in the distance. I started the car, pulled out slowly, and circled the block twice before heading toward the highway. The Warwick shrank in my rearview mirror, but the feeling didn't. That crawling, ugly thing in my chest that told me this wasn't over. That this person, whoever they were, didn't just know about Delaney, they knew about me, where I was, what I was doing, real time. It's one thing to catch someone in a lie. It's another thing entirely to realize there's a third party watching the both of you. I got home close to midnight. All the lights were off except for the porch. She always left it on for me. My car headlights swept across the driveway and landed on something that made my stomach drop even further. There was a piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. A white, folded in half. No envelope. I stopped the car so fast I barely put it in park. Jumped out and snatched the paper like it might evaporate. My hands were shaking as I opened it. She was in room 829 for 18 hours. He arrived 45 minutes after her. He left first. Different elevator. That was it. No signature, no timestamp. Just cold mechanical detail like it came from a surveillance report. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't someone trying to ruin a marriage. This was documentation. Someone had been watching her, following her. And now they were feeding it to me, piece by piece, like breadcrumbs into hell. I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the garage with the engine off, reading that note over and over again. Then I pulled up the message thread on my phone and typed, "Who are you?" No response. "Why are you doing this?" Still nothing. I opened Delaney's location. We'd shared it years ago, mostly for convenience, never for distrust. I don't think either of us had checked it in months. It was off. Of course it was. I walked inside like I was stepping onto a frozen lake. She was asleep on the couch, a soft blanket around her legs, a documentary playing on mute. She looked peaceful, almost untouched by everything I was going through. I stared at her for a while, longer than I should have. Tried to remember if I still knew who I was looking at. My phone buzzed again, and I nearly dropped it. New message, same number. Ask her about Parker. Just that. One name, no context. I looked down at her sleeping face, her hair half covering her cheek, her phone glowing faintly on the coffee table beside her. I'd never heard the name Parker before. At least, I didn't think I had. But somewhere deep in my brain, a door creaked open. Parker? There was a Parker. From something she mentioned months ago. A work story. A joke. An intern? I couldn't remember. But now, the name felt radioactive. I picked up her phone. Same lock screen, same passcode. I hesitated, then typed it in. It opened. What I saw in her messages changed everything. There's this strange thing that happens right before you open someone's phone for answers you're not ready for. Your fingers move like they belong to someone else, but your brain begs them to stop. It's like pulling the pin out of a grenade and hoping it turns out to be a trick grenade, some harmless party favor. But this wasn't a party. And what I found on Delaney's phone was no favor. I opened her messages first, not the usual names, not her family group chat, or Julia from work. I scrolled lower, into the territory where people you don't text often live. That's where I saw it. Parker N., just the name. No emoji, no heart, no nickname. But the last message was only from 3 days ago. That alone made my throat tighten. I tapped. The thread wasn't long, maybe 25 messages total. but it was what wasn't said that made the air in my lungs feel poisoned. No greetings, no goodbyes. Just time-stamped bursts of conversation that reeked of secrecy. Parker N., Thursday, 6:43 p.m. Still thinking about Sunday. Delaney, 6:45 p.m. Don't. You know we can't go back there again. Parker N., then meet me somewhere else. Delaney, I can't talk like this here. That was it for that night. 3 days ago. Before that, a gap of 10 days. And before that, a photo. No face, just her legs crossed at the ankle. Hotel carpet below. Familiar. Warwick red. I backed out of the thread so fast I nearly fumbled the phone. Then I made the mistake of checking her photo gallery. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some work selfies, screenshots of recipes. Instead, I found an album called Notes, hidden from the main grid, only visible under the Recents tab. I opened it. First photo, a blurry parking garage level sign. Third, a receipt from some boutique restaurant downtown. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, 1 dessert. Third, a photo of a wristwatch, not hers, big, silver, masculine. On a nightstand next to an open room service tray. There were 13 photos in total, all of them careful, deliberate, never showing a face, but every single one felt like a brick thrown at my skull. And that's when I saw the final image in the album, a screenshot of a message, not from Parker, from someone else. A number saved only as D. D, he doesn't know. He won't. He still thinks it was Boston. D, we're ghosts. That's the only way this works. D, delete after reading. She hadn't deleted it. I stared at that screen for a long time, long enough for the shadows outside to shift, long enough for the anger in my chest to ferment into something sharper, humiliation. Because it wasn't just the betrayal anymore, it was the coordination, the planning, the way they'd woven a narrative around me like a straitjacket. How many people knew about this? How long had I been the punchline? I heard her stir on the couch, murmuring something in her sleep. I slipped the phone back where I found it and walked upstairs. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat in the dark in our bedroom, thinking. My mind went back to that note under the wiper blade. He left first. Different elevator. Was that Parker? Was that D? How many elevators had I missed? I opened my own phone and sent a message to the unknown number again. Who is D? This time, the reply came fast. You're asking the wrong question. I blinked, typed. Then, what's the right one? The typing dots flickered for a moment. Then the message came through. How far would she go to protect what you're not supposed to find? I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I lay there staring at the ceiling like it was about to split open. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind through the siding, it all sounded wrong, off, like the house was trying to tell me something, and I was too stupid to speak the language. Delaney came to bed around 1:30 a.m. She tiptoed in like she always did when I had a migraine, slid under the covers, her back to me. As if she didn't notice that I was wide awake, my eyes open in the dark like headlights. I listened to her breathing settle into that soft rhythm that used to bring me comfort. Now it made me feel like I was lying next to a stranger with a familiar face. The next morning, I called in sick to work, said I had food poisoning. No one questioned it. They never do. That's the curse of being dependable. When you break routine, people just assume you're still in control. Delaney left early, said she had a site visit and then a lunch with her team. I kissed her goodbye out of muscle memory, but my stomach turned as soon as the door shut. The moment I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I got up and started searching the house. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe some part of me hoped I'd find nothing, that I'd find proof I was just being paranoid, that maybe the messages were some elaborate prank and I'd overreacted myself into a spiral. Instead, I found the envelope. It was tucked inside a random hardcover on the third shelf in the study, a book she never read. I'd only pulled it out because it looked slightly askew, like it had been shoved in hastily. The envelope had no markings, just cream-colored paper, stiff and sealed. Inside was a printed photo, not digital, printed, of me. Sitting in my car, parked outside the pharmacy last Tuesday, on the phone, holding a cup of coffee. I remember that day. I had called Delaney to ask about allergy meds, and she told me to grab oat milk for her, too. The angle of the shot made my skin crawl. It wasn't from a distance. It wasn't some grainy zoom lens across the street. It was from inside another car, parked next to mine. My throat went dry. There was no note, no caption, no explanation. Just that photo, clear as day, and the sick realization that someone had been following me just as closely as they were following her. I set the envelope on the desk and backed away like it might explode. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I logged into our home router's admin dashboard. We don't have security cameras, but we do have smart lights, smart speakers, smart thermostats, all of them connected to our network. And the thing about home networks is, every device leaves a footprint, a MAC address, a login time, an ID. I checked the logs. There was a device I didn't recognize. Not my phone, not hers, not the TV, not the smart fridge. Something unnamed. A device that connected via our guest Wi-Fi 2 nights ago. At 2:17 a.m. while we were sleeping. It stayed connected for just 12 minutes. 12 minutes. I stared at the timestamp until it blurred. Then I pulled up the camera roll on my phone, checked screenshots, double-checked the message from the unknown number. You're not wrong, just behind. That came the same night, that exact night. It hit me like a sucker punch to the chest. Whoever was sending these messages, they weren't just watching her. They weren't just tailing me. They had been inside our home. Inside. 12 minutes. I ran upstairs, checked every drawer, every vent, every closet. Not looking for objects. Looking for gaps, missing things, hidden things. Nothing stood out. Until I opened her jewelry box, the bracelet, the one that started all this, was gone. No explanation, no trace, just missing. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and sent another message to the number. You were in our house. Why? What did you take? This time the reply didn't come in a bubble. It came as an image, a photo, of me, sleeping, taken from the foot of the bed. I didn't drop the phone. I wanted to. My fingers even twitched like they were ready to fling it across the room. But I couldn't let go. I stared at the photo on the screen, my own face lit by the dim, grainy image of a man lying in bed, mouth slightly open, blanket up to his chest, completely unaware. The angle was low, foot of the bed, slightly to the left. Taken from the floor, maybe even from behind the open closet door. The timestamp embedded in the photo metadata was from 4 nights ago. 3 a.m., Delaney had been asleep next to me. I was wearing the same worn-out gray shirt I'd had on the night we watched that terrible documentary about honeybees. I looked up from the phone and scanned the bedroom. Same lamp, same headboard, same rumpled throw pillow I always forgot to move when I lay down. But now, none of it felt like mine. The air in the room wasn't mine anymore. The space had been touched, used, trespassed. That sick feeling behind my ribs, the kind of nausea that doesn't come from your stomach, but from some ancient part of your survival brain, took over. I walked out of the bedroom and locked myself in the upstairs bathroom, not because I needed to be in there, but because it was the only room in the house without a window. I sat on the closed toilet lid with the lights off and the exhaust fan humming overhead, just trying to get my thoughts to quiet down. They wouldn't. They just swirled louder. Someone had been in our house, not just physically. They had stood within a few feet of me, had taken a photo, had watched me sleep. That was a kind of violation no locksmith or alarm system could ever undo. I started thinking about the smart devices again, the guest Wi-Fi. Who would know the password? It wasn't something we gave out freely. Even friends had to ask us to read it off the back of the router. And Delaney wasn't the type to hand it out casually either, unless she hadn't meant to. Unless someone close to her had been in the house before. With her. I thought of Parker. Of D. Of the message that said, he doesn't know. He won't. I opened the phone again, hands clammy, and began scanning her saved contacts. I'd already seen Parker. No, D, nothing under that initial. But then I realized something else. I hadn't checked her email. I opened the mail app. She had 2 inboxes, her main Gmail and her work address. Both were active. I checked her Gmail first. Mostly newsletters, flight confirmations, random charity receipts. I scrolled back about 2 months and froze. One thread stood out, labeled confirmation-guest access pipe homelink smart. The subject was innocent enough, but when I opened it, my chest tightened. The email was from a homelink support team. It confirmed the temporary digital access code Delaney had set up for our front door smart lock. Access granted to Dorian Nash. Status: temporary guest access. Access window: June 10th to June 14th. Permission level: full entry, no alerts triggered. Dorian D. I felt my blood turn to static. Delaney had given someone named Dorian Nash full access to our home for 4 days. It was scheduled. It was intentional. The week she told me she was in Boston, room 829, Warwick Hotel, guest access. I couldn't breathe. I copied the name, searched it on LinkedIn, no results. Searched on Facebook, nothing solid. Then I tried a deeper search. A court records lookup, public access site. Took a while to load, but when it finally returned a hit, my mouth went dry. Dorian Nash, age 39, arrested in 2017, no conviction, for suspected corporate wire fraud. Charges dropped. Last known residence, 1 town over from ours. No employment listed, no current address. I stared at the screen, heart thudding like a trapped bird inside my chest. That was the man Delaney had let into our home, while I was at work, while I was sleeping, while I was trusting her. And whoever he wasn't just an affair. He was the man taking the pictures. He was the one leaving messages. He was in control of something, and now I had to figure out what. I was about to stand up when the lights in the bathroom flickered. Once, twice, then off. Total darkness. I scrambled for my phone to turn on the flashlight, but before I could unlock the screen, it buzzed in my hand. New message, unknown number. Stop digging, Tucker. You're starting to get in the way. The screen dimmed after the message, but I just sat there in the dark, motionless, the words floating in my head like ash and smoke. Stop digging, Tucker. You're starting to get in the way. I read it again and again until the words stopped sounding like English. It wasn't just a warning. It was a line in the sand, one I'd apparently crossed without even knowing it. I got out of the bathroom like someone escaping a sealed tomb. Every light switch I touched worked fine again. The flicker, whatever it was, hadn't returned. But now, I didn't trust anything. Not the walls, not the devices, not even the shadows under the furniture. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was architecture, a structure built around me, brick by calculated brick, and I had been living in it like a content little rat. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just keep reacting. I needed to confront Delaney, not with accusations, not with screenshots or late-night photo evidence. That hadn't worked so far. She was smart, too smart. If I came at her swinging, she'd have a response ready, maybe even tears. She was capable of crying with just the right amount of breath-catching vulnerability that made you feel like the monster. She'd done it once when I called her out for hiding a credit card bill from me during year 2 of our marriage. She turned it into a conversation about how much pressure she was under, how I didn't understand her career, and I ended up apologizing for even looking in the drawer. Not this time. This time I needed to catch her off balance. So, I waited. She got home around 6:20 that night, acting normal, wearing that clean, polished version of herself she always wore after meetings. She kissed my forehead, asked how I was feeling, and told me she had a weird craving for fried pickles. She laughed about it, made a joke about pregnancy cravings, then winked. A joke, not a real hint. We'd been careful after all, but even that moment felt like a blade turned sideways inside me. I said nothing. I watched her move through the kitchen, prepping a salad, talking about office gossip like nothing was wrong, like we weren't living inside a slow-burning lie. Finally, around 8 p.m., I said, "Hey, do you remember the guy who installed our smart lock? The one from that HomeLink company?" She paused. Not long, less than a second, but it was there. "No," she said. "That was like, 3 years ago?" "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering. I noticed something weird in the app. Thought maybe someone was trying to break in." Her shoulders stiffened slightly, but her voice stayed smooth. "You think someone broke into the house?" "Not sure," I said. "Just thinking through possibilities. You ever give access to anyone recently?" Her back was still to me. She was rinsing off a knife, but her hand wasn't moving under the water. It was just holding the blade still. "Of course not," she said. "Why would I?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally understood how much effort it took to lie so cleanly. It wasn't about the words. It was about tone, tempo, space. Delaney was a damn concert pianist of deception. I dried my hands and left the room. 10 minutes later, I watched from the hallway as she took her phone to the bathroom, something she rarely did unless she was texting someone privately. I waited, then walked outside to the side yard, directly beneath the bathroom window. I stood there in the dark like an idiot in a hoodie, heart punching my ribs. Inside, I could hear the faintest trace of her voice. She was whispering. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard enough. He said something about the lock. Don't know how much he's seen. No, I deleted it. No, I didn't tell him about that night. That night, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just listened until the water ran, and she ended the call with a low, "Okay, I'll handle it." Handle me? Was that the plan now? I went back inside and sat in the living room. When she came out, hair damp, face composed, she asked if I wanted to watch an episode of something, anything, and I told her I was tired. I watched her go up the stairs, calm, measured, like she didn't just have a crisis management briefing behind a bathroom door. When I was sure she was asleep, I opened her phone again. The thread with Parker was gone, so was the photo album, but I already knew how to retrieve deleted files. I'd worked IE long enough to know no one deletes something completely without a trace. And just as I suspected, buried in the recently deleted folder was a voice memo. It had no label, no date, but the waveform was still visible. I hit play, and what I heard wasn't Delaney's voice. It was a man. Low, slow, careful. You keep him calm. That's your job. Mine is making sure what we built doesn't go public. If he finds the account, everything unravels. The message ended with the sound of a door clicking shut. Account? Public? What the hell were they hiding? It wasn't just an affair anymore. It was something bigger, and I was already in too deep to back out now. I barely slept that night, not out of fear anymore, but focus. Everything had shifted. I could feel it, the way you feel weather change in your bones before the sky even turns. This wasn't about infidelity anymore. Delaney hadn't just betrayed me. She'd tried to manage me like I was a risk factor in some hidden operation. But now, I had something they didn't expect: motive, momentum, and access. I remembered what the voice in the memo said. If he finds the account, everything unravels. That one line turned into an obsession, an account, something hidden, something tied to all of this. The fake trips, the digital key codes, the unknown man in our bedroom, the surveillance. I started digging, not through her phone anymore. She'd cleaned that out like a crime scene, but through her laptop. Delaney had always been careful, but she had one flaw. She reused passwords, especially for apps she assumed I'd never touch. The password was my middle name, Jacob, lowercase, no numbers. She always said I had a boring middle name, and joked she used it for things that were equally boring, like Dropbox. Only this Dropbox wasn't boring. It had a folder labeled Investments Quiet. Inside were spreadsheets, scanned contracts, emails, even recorded Zoom calls. And at the center of all of it, payments, wire transfers, from a shell consulting firm called Nash Strategies LLC. That name again. Nash. Dorian Nash. Each transfer linked to property deals under review, specifically eco-design real estate ventures where Delaney's firm just happened to have influence. She was laundering insider intel, feeding it to Dorian, who was flipping land and shares before the projects went public. And me? I was the alibi, the husband at home, the trusting one, the guy who she kept calm with late-night documentaries and jokes about fried pickles. I saved every file, every log. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I did something better. I made an appointment with a friend of mine, former classmate turned corporate fraud investigator, the kind of guy who doesn't wear a suit but knows how to trace a wire transfer backward through 6 dummy corporations. I gave him everything. "You're not pressing charges?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "I just want the option." The next morning, I packed a bag. Nothing dramatic, just enough to last a few weeks. She was still asleep when I left. I didn't leave a note. Just took my keys, my files, and a USB drive with every piece of proof they tried to bury. It felt clean. Not vengeful. Just necessary. But life has a strange way of turning. Because 2 weeks later, I got a call. Unknown number. It wasn't Dorian. It wasn't Delaney. It was her firm's ethics officer. Delaney had confessed. Everything. The affair, the business deals, the digital access logs. All of it. She'd been caught in a surprise audit and cracked under pressure. Her resignation was pending internal legal review. Dorian had gone off-grid, but as of that morning, the firm had launched an investigation into all contracts he'd touched in the last 12 months. "Do you want to press charges?" they asked. I thought about it. I really did. But in the end, I said no. Not because I forgave her, not because I was weak, because she no longer had anything I needed. And, as strange as it sounds, that freedom was enough. I moved into a small rental. Started freelance consulting again. Reconnected with my brother, who I hadn't really seen in years. I took walks without looking over my shoulder, slept with the windows open. Slowly, I started to rebuild. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I woke up one morning, made coffee, sat on my porch, and didn't check my phone first. No messages, no threats, just a breeze. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Not because everything was okay, but because I knew I finally was.